we will wait for Valérie and then we can kick it off. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce the topic from margin to mainstream. And why from margin to mainstream? There is only a handful of banks who actively engage today in a crypto offering, be it trading, be it custody. However, there is a survey according to EY, apparently 70% of banks are already working on their crypto offering, and then we will see more and more go live. Thank you for being here. Let's do a quick introduction. I'm curious to know about you as a person and the company you represent. From left to right, Payal, please go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. Payal Shah, CME Group. I lead the equity and crypto product development at CME, and we have futures and options on a number of asset classes, everything from equities, FX, interest rates, gold, silver. We got into the crypto space about 7 years ago. We offer Bitcoin and Ether futures and options, and also a number of reference rates with our partners, CF benchmarks, so on kind of the top 20, 22 tokens in the crypto space.
Thank you so much, Valérie.
So hello everyone, so my name is Valérie Noël. I'm a head of trading of Banksys, which is a Swiss private bank, family-owned, 26 billion asset under management. I'm a trader since almost 30 years now, all asset classes, but my background is more equity and derivative. And we launched trading and custody for crypto since last December, and I was part of the project to launch that.
Merci, Dirk. Dirk?
Thank you, Amy. Dirk Klee, CEO of Bitcoin Suisse. I joined about a year ago from traditional finance, actually. So previous Barclays, UBS, BlackRock. Really excited to be at Bitcoin Suisse. We're founder of the Crypto Valley, like yourself, Amy, and we're looking back at a 10-year history of innovation. So we've been the first broker, first institutional custody, first stablecoin, Swiss stablecoin. We've been very instrumental in the Ethereum ICOs. That's very well known. So a lot of innovation, and proud of the people and culture at Bitcoin Suisse.
Thank you so much. Franz?
Hi, I'm Franz Bergmueller, CEO of SEBA Bank. I have a background in consulting and in financial services, and I'm just enjoying the journey from Web 1, Web 2, and then finally Web 3 and crypto. SEBA, as you know, is one of the few regulated crypto banks in this world. We're offering basically all products and things people need, also serving traditional customers, and especially with a focus now on crypto natives and crypto companies in 3 regions. We focus on Asia, Middle East, and our home base is close by in Zug, Switzerland.
Thank you. And last but not least, Alfonso.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Alfonso Gomez. I'm the CEO for BBVA Switzerland. I don't know how familiar you with BBVA Group. We have a strong presence in emerging markets. We have the largest bank in Mexico. We have presence in Colombia, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Argentina, and Turkey. And we became the first tier 1 in the Eurozone dealing in the crypto space. So we are managing traditional assets, and we're combining our value proposal to our customers also with digital assets. We are really focused on this opportunity because we do believe that in this crypto space we have many things to do since the incumbent bank sides.
So where are we from margin to mainstream? Payal, Franz, what do you think? Do we have a long way to go?
Well, I think if we dissect the question, right, how do you make something mainstream? For me, it's a number of things, right? It's choice, having an asset class where you can access different points of access, different choice, the model to manage risk is there. I think those are the things that make something too mainstream. So with crypto, I think, for Bitcoin and for Ether, yeah, we probably are. We probably are well on the way to mainstream adoption. It's certainly what we're seeing on our markets. So for Bitcoin and Ether, we launched those futures beginning 2017. When we started with Bitcoin, we were probably doing 1,000 contracts a day. We're now doing 10,000 contracts a day. So that's what 4.5, nearly $5 billion notional dollars per day in volume. So yeah, if we look at Bitcoin and Ether, yeah, I think that the ecosystem around is growing, right? So it's not just futures and options. On the regulated side, people have choice, right? You can, depending on institutional ability to access, right? Some institutions are able to access the spot markets, well and good, right? Some are they're not able to access the spot markets because of regulation or lack of regulation, lack of clarity. And so you have the regulated exchanges like CME. And there's also this really nice arb that's forming between the regulated exchanges and the unregulated exchanges and spots. And then you have the introduction of ETF markets. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we saw the introduction of the futures-based ETF, one of the quickest growing ETFs. I think it amassed over $1 billion in 2 days. So that's access, right? There's another way for people, pension funds, asset managers, to access. So for Bitcoin and Ether, yeah, for sure. For the other asset class, for the other crypto tokens, I think there's probably some time to go before we see that mainstream adoption. And I think that comes from the technology. It comes from how many people are using the network, what the growth is, what the use cases and applications are. And therefore, the trading aspect will come at some point.
What do you think, Franz?
I have a little bit of different view. How old is this industry really? 14, 15 years? It's a teenager. It's still early. It behaves like a teenager. It's crazy. Like we see volatility and crazy things going on. Remember the last 12 months, right? So I'm totally positive about the future, but how teenagers are, a lot of energy, wild ideas, right? But we need to grow up as an industry in this teenage industry. And I think there's a good way to go to mass adoption. There are a few things really missing from my point of view, but I love to be in this industry and to work with this teenage industry.
Yeah, I share partially your viewpoint, but then it's incredible how much innovation blockchains bring to capital markets, instantaneous settlement, then just visibility, and yeah, I think we are far still from mainstream. Absolutely, Valérie and Alfonso, you two work for a long-time private bank who decided to implement crypto offering. How was the journey from the idea to the point of implementation? Can you share a bit?
Sure, and just to rebound on what he said, I was here in 2000 when the dot-com bubble came on the market. Everything was dot-com. It was, you were buying company, was, having debt in like 10, 15 years later, but people was just like it's dot-com. So it's a little bit the Far West, teenager of Far West for the moment, but yeah, if we see, for sure, we see an adoption. So us, we can trade we can trade and custody crypto since last December. It's been a quite long journey, 18 months to do it. Because what? Because FINMA, because regulator, we are a Swiss private bank. We need to do stuff step by step. And it was quite challenging, not only the regulatory part, but the security, because, it's money of people. So security is a big, big part. Trading, as a trading point of view, as soon as you can plug find the counterparty you want to trade with, which are regulated also, and find API or fix to put the connection together to have a good connectivity. We also found challenging to trade with crypto broker because for them API fix was not obvious. So they say you can, maybe text me on Telegram to pass me your order. No, it's not gonna. That's not gonna be that way. So we broke a couple of arms also. So we find a way, but it was a long journey, not only for us, also for the broker crypto counterparties. And the big challenge we're still facing now is on the back office and middle office, because it's not standardized. Every exchange has got his own workflow, and for the back office and middle office, it's a lot of manual. We are talking about Web3, everything, but I can tell you in a real life, it's a lot of manual, and the big challenge are here. So yes, for sure, one day we hope that the blockchain will do the settlement, but there is also a lot of money around this activity by a lot of people, so it's going to come, but we need a couple of times, I think.
And why did you decide to correspond to the demand of your clients? You were telling me that the kids of the clients were
for
calling,
sure.
right?
When Bitcoin was 60,000, we receive a lot of phone calls. Well, we need to, we need to trade. What can we do? Blah blah blah. My kids pushing me, want me to buy Bitcoin. I don't know what it is, and could you talk to them? So then I start to talk to the children of the client, and they explain the point. And as I say, we are a Swiss private bank, family owned. So at some stage we knocked the door to the CEO and said, "This is happening." Bitcoin, crypto is very emotional. Huh? People love or people hate. You still have all this, very emotional stuff on crypto. But then we said, for us, we understand the concept. For us, it's a new asset class. This is the way we have done it. I mean, we didn't outsource trading and custody to someone else. It's the same trader, the same workflow for us, with same people on the back office, and we just elevate ourselves with this new asset class. We understand why we are doing this. And so yes, the children it's also a generation stuff, If your account is more or less 4.5% of people in a house who own crypto for the moment, but 18% between 16 and 21 are 16 and 21 years old. They're all 20%, between 18 and 20%. So it's also a generation point of view.
Shift.
For sure, and it's going to come with them.
Thank you. How about BBVA Switzerland?
Yes, in BBVA we have the mission to bring the opportunities of the new era to our customers. At the end of the day, the most important asset that we have, banks, are our customers, right? And we are really focused on customers. Actually, one of our values is customers come first. So when we analyze the magnitude of the crypto space, obviously is too big to be ignored, and this is something that we take into account very seriously. And when we analyze also the adoption curve, let me share with you some thoughts that I think make a lot of sense. If we go back to the 1997, the internet users all around the world was something like 100 million. 100 million. As of today, the users of internet are 5 billion. The current users for today in the blockchain with blockchain technology is something like 400 million. So I don't think it's really difficult to analyze and trying to create a proper forecast in order to see how it's going to grow this industry in the next few years. So it's a question of responsibility. And when you are, if you are focused on the wealth management side, which I think is quite relevant also, the current positions of investments in the crypto space are less than 1% over total asset allocation, which means that there's a big room to improve in terms of investments. So basically, we see clearly the opportunity. As BBVA Switzerland, we are just focused on a couple of protocols, Bitcoin and Ethereum. I completely agree with your statement. I think the name of the game in the industry right now are obviously the biggest one, but there is a technology risk also. From BBVA, we do believe that the opportunity is here. And another important point that I would like to share with you all, Switzerland, right? Switzerland is a small country focused on business, and we are becoming really cutting edge with blockchain. I think the opportunity is massive. No, because we are focused on this technology. I think even more important, regulators are proactive. They are trying to analyze and trying to create a solid framework, and this is, I think, is really outstanding. And at the same time, we have a huge traditional in private banking from many years. BBVA Switzerland is completely sure that we will be able to capture new business in this new space, particularly in the wealth management side, but also with institutional customers regarding crypto custody. Because at the end of the day, in this current timing, counterparty risk is becoming even more important than it was in the past. And traditional banks or incumbent banks, which is the case of BBVA with 160 years of history, we can put in place something that you cannot pay, which is trust, right? We are really focused, and we are focused in three important angles: education, which is absolutely relevant, cybersecurity, also, and regulation.
Thank you so much. The next question goes to Dirk, and it's a bit more of a personal one. So Bitcoin Suisse has been pioneering crypto finance for 10 years now. You started last year, 1st of April, after a career where you built the global banking platform of UBS. Then you also have BlackRock's ETF platform. And then you decided to join Bitcoin Suisse. What was the motive behind this change? And also, how do you see this world parallel to traditional finance?
Yeah, I think curiosity is a big piece of that, but I also saw both worlds converging, and Bitcoin Suisse being a poster child of that, right? If you look at the clients that we serve, and that's kind of where I see the world is coming together. So we started with CryptoPunks, crypto foundations, and then we added private individuals, which you are serving. So I would say now it's probably half-half, but it's really a parallel world, right? Mm-hmm. We have clients that don't even understand why they would need a bank, but yes, maybe it's some, right? And there's the other side that wants to diversify their portfolio. So having come from the traditional world where I built products, where I built technology for banks and asset managers, I thought that this is the right time to add. Clearly, when Franz said it, it's also an industry that needs a couple of grown-ups, and I think that is, where I can probably add to the equation. So bringing, governance, regulation, and all those pieces together with great technology and great people and great culture. And I love the vibe of the blockchain and the crypto world, right? It's inspirational. It's definitely the future. It comes in wave. We stumble, we stand up. And also, what I like about our industry is that it's an honest industry, right? If you fail as a big bank, we just saw that, the state comes to your rescue. If we fail, we're dead. And I think that's a good thing.
Stakes are different, and definitely you don't have time to get bored. So that's nice in our industry.
It makes it more innovative, right? Without a doubt, right? The fear of failing, you make sure you get it right, because there's nobody to bail you out. Can't agree more.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're in agreement here. But yeah, the stakes are real. So, Payal, you are not a bank with CME Group. You have been around for 180 years. You, however, service and work together with a lot of banks. How do you help them warehouse their risk?
Yeah, so I think it's the same for, whether it's a bank, whether it's a asset manager, pension fund. For your clients, for example, where they might be long Bitcoin holders. I think where CME comes in, or where futures comes in, is the future is the most effective way of capital, accessing markets in a capital efficient way. And you don't have to necessarily ride the wave. So, we're hearing all about the halving coming up. We're hearing all about different catalysts that will either increase or reduce the price. And where people are entering crypto markets, you don't have to necessarily buy and just manage or sail through that risk. With crypto options, you're able to mitigate some of that risk. You can take call options and just trim a little bit of that exposure. So it was certainly something that maybe private banks and CME could work together. On the same way, with ETFs coming online, the ETF provider would warehouse some of that risk with an institution like CME. So really, it's a way of managing that risk. And the way that we created the contract, much to your point earlier, is it needed to plug and play with the traditional markets. So a lot of our customers were already in, the traditional asset classes. So the way that we created the contract was that it plugged and played, and it looked exactly the same as an S&P contract or a gold contract. And by that, I mean a couple of things, right? So it's cash settled. So when you're trying to explain to an institution, and what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, is that where people wanted to get involved in crypto, explaining what crypto is was like, mind blown. And then if we then went and said, okay, you now need to open a wallet, you need to worry about insurance and custody, and maybe being hacked, like it was all too much confusion. And so with a cash settled offering, we're doing away with all of that, right? It's complete. It's set the future settles to an index in much the same way as futures on the S&P or like the CAC 40, any index. And so we do away with all of those barriers to entry. And throughout the, I think the last few months have actually been a really good learning curve for many industry participants. That we saw the collapse of FTX, we saw the contagion spread through like Silicon Valley Bank and SVB and Silvergate. But it actually rose people's curiosity about, there's volatility back in the market. And crypto behaves, I think, in much the same way as other asset classes, that when there's volatility, when there's something to trade on, that people want to get back involved. And we certainly saw that. But it raised the curiosity, and it raised the understanding of what a regulated marketplace brings. So everything that you see in traditional markets was just refocused on and rehoned upon using crypto markets. So the things that people are very comfortable with, the idea of segregated assets, I think is going to be really key going forward. So with a cleared model, CME becomes the counterparty to every trade. So we are the buyer to every seller, the seller to every buyer. So there's no risk. You've seen that contagion, right, in some of the unregulated marketplaces, unfortunately, where there's auto liquidations or clawbacks. With CME, it's because of the way that contract is created. So cash settled, as I mentioned, right, centrally cleared. So we become the buyer to every seller. There's no counterparty risk. And the third and probably most important thing is the ability to get in and out. So there's liquidity, that when you want to remove your position, there is adequate liquidity. And we're seeing that from the number of large interest open holders. So this is a stat that the CFTC puts out. And the CFTC is who we're governed by in the US. And they put out a stat every fortnight that shows the number of large open interest holders. And for Bitcoin, that is any institution that holds 25 contracts. And so one Bitcoin contract for us is 5 Bitcoin. So it's 5 Bitcoin times 25 contracts. And so those institutional firms are holding, 1.2, 1.3 million. And on last count, there was 115 large open interest holders. So that shows like how CME is working with banks, with institutionals, because we can see it in the growth of large open interest holders. We can see it in the amount of trading that we see, the liquidity in our markets. And it's time and time again, right? Whenever there is any risk in the broader markets, we see corresponding spikes in our market. So we saw it last November with FTX, where we traded 210,000 contracts. We saw it in March when we had our biggest trading day of the year, when we traded like 5 billion in crypto contracts. So that's, I think it's the ecosystem, and to your point, it's what I love about this industry, that it's not one or the other. There is space for everybody, and we like the interconnectedness or interrelatedness, I think, is really key here.
Thank you so much. The next question goes to Valérie, and after I take a question from the audience, if there is any, I will pick someone who closed the door gently here. So get ready with your questions. Valérie, this Wednesday you launched a fund of crypto hedge funds with very notable partners. I believe BBVA is also one of your partner on the fund. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yes, so the launch will be 1st of July. It's a fund of crypto, as you said, with BBVA and Swiss Capital. So it's Swiss Group and then Swiss Bank and Swiss Capital. So it's Mark Seitz, who's heading Swiss Capital, which is the son of the founder of Swiss Group. And yes, for us, it's a second step. We start with direct exposure, then we do a fund of fund. And also we have done this, because I don't know if you know, but any discretionary portfolio, there is guidelines for the Swiss banking. And for how can I say that? For assets who are not transitional, you need to do, you can trade it via mutual fund or fund of fund. So if one day we want to put some crypto in our mandate, it has to be by a fund of fund. We cannot put a direct exposure for the moment. That's the law for the moment. So as we believe on this new asset class, and we receive a demand also for clients that for some of them it's also very complicated to have direct exposure, but they can have direct exposure via fund of fund. So that's also why we have decided to create this fund, which is going to launch
1st of July.
1st of July.
Right? Okay, super. Yeah, congratulations. Very
Thank
exciting. Is there a question from the audience? If not, there is one. Please, next to Paolo,
Thank you. You all come from TradFi for the most part. With more tokenization coming in to the space, with tokenization of real-world assets and things like that, do you see, and you talk about the culture, do you see the Bitcoin crypto culture becoming more institutional and enterprise-driven and become more like TradFi, or do you see TradFi becoming more digitized and more tokenized and more of the crypto culture?
If I just take this one, I mean, we can... actually, I've seen a client, it was 2 or 3 days ago, is one of the founder of one of a very big token, and so he's a token holder of his token massively, and he's looking for a bank, because we can also do crypto in, crypto out. We do transfer crypto in, transfer crypto out, and he want to place some token with us. Also to diversify first, a couple of things, a custodian. I can imagine with FTX that it's actually quite good to have multiple custodian. And also because he need, he want also maybe to buy some NVIDIA or Apple or something like that. So he's happy to sell a little bit of his token. It's not like it's against the TradFi, but it's part of his journey, I have to say. So I receive more and more demand on this side than, client wanted to have exposure. They start to trade ETP, which is an ETF, but a mono product already since 2 years ago. So the more demand I have at the moment is more people from the crypto world who's coming and said, okay, now we found a way to have a bank when we can have at end of the statement. You can have your equities, fixed income, crypto, NFT, because if we have a structure, and we have an infrastructure with segregate wallet, so then, one day people, they come with art in a safe, but one day they're going to come with the NFT in their segregate wallet. So, voilà, I don't know if I answered the question. If someone wants to add something.
Thank you. Yeah, Dirk?
Yeah, I think I'm coming from both sides. So I see the blockchain world expanding and probably quicker expanding than the traditional world is reaching out in terms of tokenization. Let's not forget this is also a cultural thing. I think you were pointing to that, so kind of representing a little bit the more crypto native side. It's all about decentralization versus centralization, right? And kind of you guys, you are centralist, right? In a good way, right? Regulated centralist. But there's a whole world that wants that world to be a little bit more democratized and on broader shoulders. And I think that's where both sides need to learn from, right? It's not just having better technology, and it's not having just the better asset class and better speculation, blah, blah, blah. There's really a huge cultural trend behind this. And I think it's a positive trend, and also making a lot of mistakes.
I agree with that. But where we face, and I think everyone's going to face that, it's regulation. We are in country regulate and tax. A lot of people doesn't want. Some would like to be regulated and put the crypto on the tax. Some doesn't want. So we can see this. It's not a fight, but yes, some people who want to be completely decentralized, I can understand that. I trust probably you better than maybe some central bank, especially as of today, that they're just, rising the debt ceiling and they're just, spending. So at some stage, who do you trust? It's all about trust, and you want to trust. So maybe a peer-to-peer electronic cash is much better than, have a bank in the middle that we don't even know if the bank is going to stay last. So I think there is a shift. We are lucky enough to live this changing world, and maybe our kids will have just a peers-to-peers. And I have to say, on top of all cryptos coming or not, we are facing regulation that in Switzerland we need to follow as a private bank or as a bank regulation. And even if we believe that decentralized will be maybe much better, at some stage we need to follow the regulation and the straight. I don't know, last things I've seen on the Financial Times, 2 days ago, there is Charles Schwab, Citadel, and Virtu, which are three massive liquidity providers on a traditional stock market. They are creating a stock market and trading and custody because they believe that a lot of people would trust someone who already do that instead that they're going on decentralized exchange that they don't know what's going to happen with their coin. So everyone is thinking to every bank I know would like to be fintech, every fintech would like to have the banking license. So at some stage, we're going to find a way to meet up. Yeah,
I think we need to find the yield of the balance, right? And it's a question of trust. I think 4 years ago, most of the crypto natives were defending in the market the peer-to-peer. And as an incumbent bank, we suffer, a lot of impacts for many people saying, listen, traditional banks don't have anything to do in this crypto space. It was when we launched our plan here in BBVA in Switzerland. As of today, I can say that most of our customers, they rather to have the cryptos in a bank than in a USB. It's a very simple idea, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a question of cybersecurity, counterpart risk, and how you can manage these different protocols. Okay. And the message is quite solid. I don't think we can create the proper environment with such a decentralization if we don't have important players in the market. And regarding the collaboration in the space that you mentioned, Dirk, I cannot agree more. Unfortunately, in the traditional industry, it's much more difficult to see how the different players are willing to collaborate. In this new space, I think probably it's a question of responsibility, but we need to create the path all together. And in that regard, I think decentralization is going to be quite difficult to see in the future. We will have to find, the proper balance, but trust became more important than it was in the past, just because the sad circumstances that we saw with FTX and all the, the players in the market with bad behaviors. Let me tell you, I think we have the right to create the proper framework, being aligned with the regulator, and creating, a really high standard level of education in the community in order to move forward altogether.
I want to give a quick answer, and thank you for the question. Good question, also about culture. It obviously differs from business model to business model. I would answer the question, coming from our clients. And this is super interesting what we see, actually, that the traditional clients are moving in the direction they really have interest, especially their children, right, are pushing them. We heard them before. And more they're coming closer to this new technology and this decentralized concepts. However, the funny thing is our crypto natives and crypto companies as a clients, believe it or not, they come closer to the traditional world. All of a sudden they ask a question, can I buy a few securities with you? Yeah, of course, right? So it's an interesting merge, at least for our customers, right? And this is also, would be my answer if you would ask me what's the difference between CeFi and DeFi. At the end, we will come together, right? The technology is strong and people are just merging together, at least what we can see.
I think that's exactly what we see. The net new clients are the crypto nascents, right? So we now have an influx of miners, the new hedge funds that are just in the crypto space. But then the curiosity, as you said, the curiosity peaks. Oh, can we now start trading, the correlation between Bitcoin or NASDAQ? So then it's like the curiosity is there to start trading NASDAQ futures, which then lends to something else, So I think for us, it's the evolution of new clients to CME is from crypto.
Super. All of you answered his question. Thanks for the good question. Let's speed up a bit. We have 15 more minutes, and then we get a break. Franz and Dirk, we have quite some turbulent events behind us with the Q4 of FTX last year and then the banking crisis this year. What are you focusing on as a CEO? What are the cornerstones of risk mitigation? And what is on your mind and your number one focus?
Yeah, the funny thing is that we started the same day, April 1st last year. This is
1st
totally
of April?
funny, right?
Oh, April Fool.
And hey, what a ride after 12 months, like end of March, what we've seen is, we entered the companies and then we had the crypto crisis from Terra Luna to FTX, right? Ooh, that was interesting. And then in March, obviously everybody knows Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Silvergate, and even Credit Suisse. So we had two major events. Interesting time for us, but, people learned a few things. Yeah? After the first crisis, all of a sudden, right, regulation was positive. So many people came to us and they learned a few things, right? And a crypto-regulated bank is something they demand. And after the banking crisis, another learning, right? I believe SEBA is extremely strong in risk management. And this was exactly the point what missed in March, right? Risk management, and especially for the US banks, asset liability management. And all of a sudden, it's not about big banks or small banks and medium banks anymore. What clients are asking is proper risk management and some regulation, because they've lost money, learned a few things, and I can tell you the last weeks for us are extremely exciting. Our pipelines are bursting. Everybody wants to have a bank account with SEBA. So at the end of the day, hey, it was quite a ride and not easy to manage, but we're sitting here with a very bright future at the moment. Over to you, Dirk.
Well, it's been a steep learning curve in the last year, clearly. And interestingly, the mistakes that happened in the blockchain world or the crypto world were TradFi problems, right? There were old school problems. It's basically a 100-year wrap up of what could go wrong, right? Disappropriation of client funds, segregation of assets. I mean, this is in the TradFi world. This is regulated and solved for decades, right? But we had to find out, right? I mean, not in our company, but in the broader industry, that wasn't the standard, right? That wasn't even known there needs to be risk management, right? I mean, listening to the FTX thing, right? I mean, it's all over, right? I mean, that eroded trust. And whether you are in TradFi or in DeFi or wherever, it's only about trust, right? And you build trust by a consistent track record of, being truthful and managing client assets in a fiduciary way, in a proper way, and doing it with the right governance and the right mitigation. And I think this industry still has to learn a lot, right, from the TradFi world, and that was the key. Now, right, we need to again focus on the innovation piece of growing, of putting in more rails. But the last year was a setback. And I think, we're all talking about institutional adoption, which has arrived. I can see that. But it's still building more rails than its institutional demand ready now, right? It will come. But I think, we need to all consistently work on regaining trust and building.
Thank you. I'm curious, what's Valerie's and Alfonso's take after the past 12 months where the last Crypto Valley conference was a very different environment, or did take place in a different environment, and how incumbent banks can take place in advancing our industry as a whole?
I think, in fact, the last 12 months have, many, I would say, big events or big impacts in the market. I think the important things in life always, happens during such a long period of time. I think it's pretty obvious that this is not a passing fad. There's not a when you analyze how was the past years ago, and people was concerning about internet, and you can see, that there are many newspapers in the 90s were saying, this is a passing fad, and obviously internet today is all around the world. And you analyze how is the speed in the last 12 months. We realize in the case of BBVA how important is once again education. This is absolutely key. We have to be really focused in the ecosystem, trying to create a proper training programs with the entire team, with employees, not just in the front area, in the compliance, legal, risk, all these areas. This is absolutely relevant. We need to understand how is the traceability of the cryptos in order to mitigate the potential risk, mostly in the anti-money laundering. This is something that we have to be extremely focused, because at the end of the day, reputational risk is key. So we are really focused on that. And another thing that we haven't discovered in the last 12 months is liquidity is very relevant, and just thanks for the technology, this is something that we can increase easily. So we think the most important things, the most important, I would say, key topics are moving forward, quite aligned with the regulators at the same time, with all the important players around. So I think we are, with the proper direction, no speeding a lot, because this is something that we have to be very prudent at the same time, but quite comfortable with the ways that we are taking.
Slowly but surely.
Yes.
Valerie,
indeed.
how about you?
I will just give two example of what we have done in traditional finance from a year ago. So Bloomberg put 50 cryptocurrency live on Bloomberg Terminal. So for TradeFi, it's fantastic because we can see the price and see all the news about the crypto. So that's actually a big step, I have to say. And the second one, if we talk a lot about crypto, but there is also blockchain. Siemens, the company Siemens in Germany, they use a private blockchain of Goldman Sachs to issue a bonds who've been direct to the investor. So they didn't put an investment bank in the middle. So it was done on a private blockchain and another one on a public blockchain in December last year. So that's all optimism. Good things will happen since a year ago. It's a big advance in a TradeFi that we already using blockchain, okay, time to time. So we are testing more the technical stuff. And as I said, it's maybe nothing for you, but Bloomberg have 50 token on it, live price. It's very cool.
Super, sounds great. Payal, I'm really interested in your take because when we prepped, you highlighted that specifically from a risk management perspective and looking into the future, what role CME is playing in risk mitigation as well as what we are seeing in terms of capital efficiency, risk management practices and innovation, how you see us moving ahead and making up for what the damage caused last year.
Yeah, I mean, so if I can take that question maybe back to front, in terms of innovation, right, I think the crypto space is probably, out of all the asset classes, the area that we're innovating the most. So if you think about last year, we brought a new product or trading mechanism to market every month. So that was 12 consecutive products, reference rates to market. So the growth is there, the appetite is there. The trust that maybe was broken a little bit, I think that's coming back because of the things that are now being built, but being built better, right? So, as you mentioned, some of the collapses of last year were because of a lack of risk systems in place. This time round, or with CME's kind of time-tested markets, we have those checks and balances in place. We talked about segregated assets. We already have things like position limits in place, so that any position can't be too large and can't be, have a snowball effect. We have what we call dynamic circuit breakers in place. So if the market moves too quickly, too fast, we just put a temporary halt on that market. So again, the things that we see in traditional finance, we're now we're seeing more commonplace in crypto. So I think the innovation is there, the trust because of these checks and balances that we need, those are coming back. And the growth potential, especially in Europe, I think is huge, right? For a number of reasons. It's probably a little bit more of a fragmented market, and so the appreciation of technology and crypto being part of that, I think, is there. We obviously have more clear regulation. I think the US maybe is struggling with the regulation, but especially in Europe, it's a lot more clear. And there's more access, right? We already have the ability to transfer very, instantaneously money person to person, but also, the availability of funds, ETPs, ETFs, you name it. There's all of these access points. So I think, bringing all of those things together means that there's more adoption in crypto in Europe. And so one of the things that we introduced, we already have the USD-denominated futures contract, but we also brought to market a euro-denominated. So it works in exactly the same way, but rather than the underlying index being USD-denominated, it's euro-denominated. So still 6 exchanges that contribute to that price. The futures settle to the index. But you have almost the track history of the 7-year-old, big brother US dollar component of that. And then the other thing we're seeing is, volatility. So volatility, after FTX obviously spiked, but is now probably at 2-year lows. So, you know, there's this eagerness for people to access the market in different ways. And so for a long time, we had option contracts that would settle on a monthly cadence. So the options would settle on the last Friday of the contract month to the future, which would then settle to cash. We now, 2 weeks back, introduced weekly options. So Monday through Friday, there's always an expiry. So this kind of lines up with what people are seeing in some of the other platforms as well. And it comes back to just having more and more access points and more tools in you know, the institution's toolbox to access that risk, whether they want to hedge, whether they want to speculate. So I think it's all of those things for us.
Thank you so much. Being mindful of the time, we have 2-3 more minutes. I have a question to the two CEOs who started the same day. What are you the proudest of as the CEO of Bitcoin Suisse?
Innovation and people and culture, because that drives everything, right? Drives good outcomes. We are a trusted partner since 10 years. We survived 3 bear markets in crypto land, and we're still here and going strong. So proud of that.
Very nice thing to be proud of. Franz, how about you?
Loyal clients. I always, you know, clients first is my mantra. So I'm just enjoying the interaction with my clients, learning from them, developing new products. Secondly, our investor base, our entrepreneurial investors are just amazing. We have investors from around the globe, and it's just fascinating to work with them. And last but not least, our people, right? The employees, right? We are working in a crazy industry, and there's one of our employees. Thank you for all your hard work. We are a startup in a crazy industry, and thanks to our employees, we're doing a good job.
Thank you so much. So, before the closing question, and just focusing on current affairs, Alfonso, you're here impacted in the way that Metaco was purchased by Ripple, and you are a client of Ripple now. What do you think about that?
That's a very good question. Yes, we do believe on the relationship between you know, different partners. In this case, we don't consider Metaco as a provider. And this is something that, you know, we started dealing with Metaco 4 years ago. So this is something that, you know, we know Metaco pretty well. And the relation that we have between BBVA and Metaco is outstanding. So you have a look to the sad circumstances that we have been seeing in the market in the last few months, and suddenly, you know, a really important player in the American market is paying $250 million for a Swiss company. I think it's a great news. Obviously, you know, for Metaco, but even for the partners, for the current partners, which is the case of BBVA. We are so happy working with Metaco, and from our professional perspective, nothing changed. We will move forward together with Metaco, with our strategy. I have to say that they are absolutely outstanding with the service that we have, and obviously, you know, Ripple pay a good amount of money, which I think is something, a good signal of value that we have to be proud of a Swiss company, right?
Yeah. So I'm happy you see it this way. Gorgeous. The last question is for everyone. You can answer by one word or one sentence from left to right. Payal, how do we get from margin to mainstream? What is missing? What's the recipe for getting there quicker?
It's simple. It's trust, it's risk management, it's liquidity. Unfortunately, I think for now, it's everything that a centralized marketplace brings so that we get to mainstream.
I add regulation and education.
All of that, but don't forget, Bitcoin is a decentralized masterpiece. So I want to hold up that. The gateway needs to be centralized, the access, the trustworthy partner, but let's not centralize the blockchain, please. Right? That's my
beautiful answer. Yeah, I love that you brought in Bitcoin. Thank you. Franz?
Simplicity. we are way too complex. I mean, most of the people in this room can handle wallets, private keys, staking, but we're talking about mass adoption here, right? Hey, we need to work on more simple solutions for this industry in order to reach mass adoption.
Super. Alfonso?
3 important topics: education, regulation, and cybersecurity. I think are the 3 key factors that have to be the drivers of the adoption in the next few years. If we are really focused on these 3, I think we can accomplish great milestones altogether.
Thank you so much for this fabulous panel. Please put your hands together for these panelists. Thank you. Clap, clap, clap.